My wife died. We'd been married since '86. Then I found the letters. 30 years of cheating. The whole village knew. They laughed at me. I got an STD. He thought one of them was his. Now, the DNA results are coming. My son's future. My past. Everything changes forever. Read it? What would you do? It's been 3 years since my wife died. 3 years of an ache you never quite shake, even when you know it's a natural part of life. We were married in '86. A lifetime together. Or so I thought. After she passed, there was this agonizing 2-week wait for her postmortem paperwork. Bureaucracy. Even in grief. You just want to lay your loved one to rest. But the world demands its forms and signatures first. It dragged on. And honestly, that waiting period, that limbo, probably shielded me from what was coming. Once we finally got the all clear, the boys and I started the grim task of going through her things. It wasn't about rushing. It was more like, let's tackle a corner today. Or hey, what's in this box? We started with the electronics first. Charging up old phones and laptops. Mostly out of curiosity. Maybe to grab a few old photos. Or just to see if they still worked. I remember my eldest Mark plugging in her old dusty flip phone. The kind you forget even existed. He joked about seeing her high scores on some ancient game. Then it was the paper's old bills. Bank statements. Photo albums. Just a slow methodical sift through a life. It was in a shoebox. Tucked deep inside a wardrobe. Beneath some old sweaters. Not even locked. Just hidden. When I lifted the lid, I saw a stack of letters. Tied with a faded ribbon. My first thought was old holiday cards. Maybe letters from her parents. Harmless. But then I pulled one out. The handwriting wasn't hers. And the words, they hit me with a jolt. My dearest love. It began. My stomach dropped. I tried to dismiss it. An old fling before me. Maybe. But then I saw a date, 1987. We were married in 1986. My hands started to tremble. The paper rustling softly. My brain tried to fight it. Tried to make sense of dearest love from 6 months into my marriage. It couldn't be. I pulled out another. Then another. They weren't holiday cards. These were love letters. Raw and intimate. And then there were printed texts. Hundreds of them. Tucked in between the letters. My eyes blurred as I scrolled through dates. Names. The same man. The messages stretched on. Year after year. Sometimes daily. My sons had drifted over. Seeing the change in my face. And the silence had thickened in the room. I barely registered them. I found a text from 7 years ago. From him. Talking about cancer. And then another. A month later. From someone else. Referencing his passing. My brain just kept doing the math 6 months into our marriage until his death 7 years ago. That was decades. My entire marriage. My entire life with her. It was all a lie. I looked at the letters. Then at my sons. Who were now reading over my shoulder. Their faces mirroring my shock. What did any of it mean? All those nights I worked. 4 days a week. Permanent nights. My shift started at 9:30 p.m. I never saw anything. No red flags. I was so busy providing. So busy being a husband and a father. I was completely blind. My mind was racing. Replaying every minor argument. Every late night. Every excuse she ever made. I kept telling myself. No. Not her. Not my wife. But the evidence was right there. Staring me in the face. In her own handwriting. And in these vile loving messages. It felt like someone had scooped out my entire past and replaced it with a hollow, ugly replica. The woman I had mourned. The woman I thought I knew. Was a stranger. How do you even begin to process something like this? How do you unknow everything you thought was real? And how in the hell am I supposed to talk to my sons about this? I just found out their entire childhood was built on a foundation of lies. Reddit. Has anyone ever gone through anything like this? What was your first move? I feel like I'm walking through a minefield and I don't even know which direction to step. Okay. Reddit. I'm still reeling. But your responses gave me a sliver of something to hold on to. We went from utter shock to this slow, agonizing peel back of layers. Each one uglier than the last. After finding those letters, my sons and I were in a daze, just staring at the pile. Then one of them, I think it was Chris, picked up a particularly lengthy text exchange. He cleared his throat. And the words he read out loud, well, they sucker punched me. It was from the AP. A message to my wife. He was talking about how much he missed our little one and he reminds me so much of you. And a little bit of me. He said he hoped he grows up knowing his real dad loved him. My breath hitched. Our little one. He reminds you of you. And me. It wasn't just an affair. He thought one of my boys was his. My head started spinning. We have 4 boys. Which one? All of them were my boys. The thought hammered through me. A chilling suspicion that instantly attached itself to every memory. Every photo. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about the very fabric of my family. My boys were silent for a long moment. Their faces a mix of confusion and fear. I could see the questions forming in their eyes before they even spoke. What if? Who? It was a nightmare. This was my legacy. My bloodline. Potentially tainted by this man. This ghost. Who'd been lurking in the shadows of my life. My mind, still trying to process the initial betrayal, now had to grapple with this devastating uncertainty. This is what this whole ugly secret meant for them. As we went through more of her things, other messages surfaced. Little whispers. Oblique references. The sheer volume of this correspondence, the casual way it was discussed, painted a horrifying picture. It wasn't just a secret between 2 people. The text talked about the village knowing. Everyone's been so good about keeping quiet. Keeping quiet. My blood ran cold. It lived in that damn village for over 30 years. Married there. Raised my kids there. I always knew I was the outsider. The Englishmen who'd married one of their own. But I thought, over time, that had faded. Now I understood. I wasn't just an outsider. I was the village idiot. The laughing stock. Every friendly nod. Every polite conversation. Every shared beer in the pub they all knew. They saw me. The cuckold. Walking around completely oblivious. The humiliation was a physical ache. A searing heat that spread through my chest. For 3 decades. They had been privy to this colossal joke at my expense. The boys, bless their hearts, reacted in typical divided fashion. Mark and Dave, the 2 older ones, immediately said, "Dad. You're our dad. This is ridiculous." But Chris and Tom, the younger 2, were visibly shaken. Chris, the one who found the text, was quiet for a long time, then just blurted out, "I need to know. What if?" Tom nodded in agreement. 2 for, 2 against. My heart ached for them. Here they were, grieving their mother. And now their entire sense of identity was thrown into question. My goal instantly shifted from just understanding to desperately trying to hold my family together. How do you deal with this kind of doubt? This kind of pain? That rips at the very core of who they are. Then came the final, brutal twist. In the flurry of finding out all this, a cold dread had settled in. I went to the doctor. Not just for a general checkup, but for a full panel, including STDs. It was a long shot. A horrifying thought I barely let myself entertain. But the betrayal was so deep. So absolute. I felt I had to check every box. When the doctor called me back in, his face was grave. He sat me down. Shuffled some papers. "I'm sorry, Mister, my name," he said. "Your tests came back positive for gonorrhea." The clap. From her. My wife. The woman I buried. My mind just went blank for a second. The clap. All this time. The doctor explained it could be controlled with medication. But it wouldn't ever truly be gone. It would stay in my blood. They didn't know how long I'd had it. Or what damage it had done. But considering my youngest is 20 and clear, it had to have been under 20 years. It was the ultimate, final slap in the face. Emotional betrayal. Public humiliation. And now this a permanent, physical reminder of her infidelity. Literally in my bloodstream. It's not just a secret anymore. It's a part of me. Forever. Reddit. I'm at a loss. How do I even begin to process this? My kids are looking for answers. The village is a cesspool of lies. And now I have to live with this physical consequence. What do I do? How do I even begin to move on when the past keeps hitting me with new, even more awful revelations? This is beyond messed up. Okay. Reddit. I'm still trying to breathe after that last bombshell. The STD diagnosis. The paternity questions. The whole damn village knowing it was all too much. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal and humiliation. But then, a flicker. A tiny, angry spark that told me I wasn't just going to take this lying down. My wife had stolen decades of my life, my dignity, and my health. But she couldn't steal this last bit of control. I remembered something from the texts. A casual mention from her to the AP she wanted to be buried next to her mom and dad. With him on the other side. Perfect. I thought. My blood running cold. Because I owned the plot next to her parents. That meant I controlled who went in it. A grim, bitter piece of leverage. My brain clicked into gear. No longer just processing pain, but formulating a plan. What's the one thing that still connected me to her? To them. Her physical remains. And I suddenly had the power to dictate her final resting place. So, when the body and the paperwork finally came through, I didn't hesitate. I didn't announce it. Didn't ask for opinions. I called a funeral director in England. 300 miles away. No fanfare. No village goodbyes. My instructions were clear: transport her. I had found a small anonymous plot in a cemetery down there. A place I'd never been to and never would visit. It wasn't about disrespecting the dead. It was about reclaiming the ground. Literally and figuratively. I put her there. Alone. Far away from her parents. And certainly far from her lover. My one regret, a small, dark twist of conscience, was that I didn't have the time to get her cremated first. It was a logistical impossibility with the urgency of getting her away. But a part of me wished I had burned every last vestige of that lie. The village, of course, found out. News travels fast in a place like that. Especially bad news about an outsider. The phone calls started. The angry whispers. They were pissed. People I'd known for decades. People who'd clinked glasses with me and my wife. Were suddenly furious that it dishonored her. That's when I snapped. I wasn't going to have a formal confrontation. Not with people who had silently mocked me for 30 years. But I had to say my piece. I made sure word got back. Loudly. Clearly. I told them exactly why I moved her. You made me the outsider for 30 years. I said. Or rather, the message I conveyed was, you never forgave me for being born in England. You all knew what she was doing. Every single one of you. And not one of you had the decency to warn me. So don't you dare complain about me not putting her to rest next to her AP. Or her mom and dad. And then came the kicker: if you want to move her grave, you'll need a judge's order to dig her up. And I own the plot next to her parents. So she's never going in there. The message was clear: my time in their cruel little drama was over. I wasn't just an outsider anymore. I was gone. I packed up my life. Sold the house. And moved out of that damn village. Back to England. Nowhere near her anonymous grave. Amidst all this, the question of the boy's paternity still hung heavy. We had another family meeting. The four of them and me. The initial division had softened into a universal need for clarity. It wasn't about who was his or mine anymore. It was about knowing the truth for their own sakes. Mark, the eldest, finally said, Dad, we need to know. All of us. For peace of mind. And the others nodded. It was a unanimous decision. We ordered 5 DNA tests online. When they arrived, we sat around the kitchen table, collected our samples, sealed them up, and dropped them in the mail. It was a strange, silent ritual, filled with a tension thicker than anything I've ever felt. So here I am, read it, out of that village, physically scarred, and waiting for those results that could redefine my entire family, waiting to see what new truth bombs are still out there. I did my piece, got my revenge, or whatever you want to call it. But is it enough? Does revenge ever really heal anything? Or does it just leave you with a different kind of emptiness? And what the hell do you do with the results? No matter what they say, how do you rebuild a life? Or even a family? When every single foundation has been utterly, completely shattered.